Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel that is Science Unlocked, and in today's session we are continuing the chapter that is Respiration in Organism, coming from class 7th Science NCERT textbook. Now over here we will going to learn more about the concept of respiration, and we will talk about some add-on phenomena related with this thing. We have already discussed a lot about respiration till now. The topic that we are beginning today with is the concept of breathing. Now this particular concept is very easy, where we simply talk about the concept of taking enough oxygen and removing out of the carbon dioxide through the nostrils or mouth. Now what happens is, in this particular process we will going to simply talk about that the amount of oxygen that the body require during the cellular respiration, that oxygen it is getting by the process of breathing, where it is taking in the air which is rich in oxygen and it is expelling out or removing out the air which is rich in carbon dioxide. As a result of that, the requirement of the body and the other things related with this process will going to be fulfilled, and this whole process of taking enough oxygen and removing of carbon dioxide is simply termed as breathing process. Now when we talk about breathing process, over here one add-on thing that is related is called as the breathing rate, where we talk about the fact that how many times a person can breathe in 1 minute. So that is exactly the concept. But over here what we have to understand is that the process of inhalation, which is equivalent to taking in of the oxygen rich air, and exhalation, that is breathing out of the carbon dioxide rich air, they both are collectively going to make one breath or one cycle of breathing. So whenever we are counting our breathing rate, that means in 1 minute how many times a person is breathing, we will not going to count only the inhalations and only the exhalations separately, but we will going to combine them as a common or a single cycle, and ultimately then we will going to count it as a single cycle or single breath. The next topic that we have is the process of breathing, where we need to understand and go through the passage that is there in case of our respiratory system, because this is the system which is responsible for the process of breathing, where what happens is that the air coming from the nasal cavity will going to get filtered because of the tiny hairs which are there in the nose. They are going to be called, the layer altogether will be called as the ciliated epithelium, because they are hair like structures inside it. And what happens is that these hair will going to ultimately filter out the air, and they will going to humidify it, this particular layers air that is coming into the body, so that it can gel up easily with the body. On the other hand, the different set of structures or different set of small parts of the system that are helping us is the nasal cavity, which will going to have a thin partition because of a thin bone called the central septum. On the other hand, once passing through this nostril or the nasal cavity, it reaches the windpipe, which is consisting of pharynx, larynx and trachea. On the other hand, it will going to split into two sections altogether, which are the bronchi or bronchioles, which further get inside the lungs of the individual or the human body, where it consists of a specific structure which is called as the exchange site of the human body for oxygen and carbon dioxide, that is called as the alveoli. So the structures which are inside the lungs, these structure are actually considered as the exchange site. What will going to happen is that these alveoli inside the lungs are going to have a covering or lining with blood vessels, so because of which the blood which is flowing in those vessels will going to take up all the oxygen from the alveoli. Like over here it is represented that the oxygen which is coming from the lungs will be taken up by the RBCs. It will be circulated throughout the body, and then while this circulation, these cells will going to produce carbon dioxide which is to be removed, so it will going to move along with the blood and move towards the lungs. So that is how the whole concept of breathing process comes in, where we say this thing that this whole passage is followed every time, that is from nasal cavity, then to the windpipe, trachea, then bronchi, alveoli, blood vessels, organs, all together performing the cellular respiration process, then release of carbon dioxide from the organs, moving towards the lungs and following the same path and moving out of the body. So that is how the whole process of breathing can be represented. Now, if when we talk about the process of breathing, one thing that we need to understand is the movement of the diaphragm and the movement of the chest cavity that we have. So during inhalation, we need lots and lots of space inside the lung cavity. So what will going to happen? The diaphragm will going to flatten down and the chest cavity will going to increase in size or expand in size. As a result of that, what will going to happen? There will be lots and lots of space created inside the lungs, and there will be a pressure difference as well as per the nature or the atmosphere that we have, as a result of which the air which is moving inside the body will going to be oxygen rich air, or the air which will going to have a higher concentration of oxygen. On the other hand, when we talk about the breathing out process, is at this particular point we need to expel out the air which is there inside the body. So for that, what we will going to do is the expansions that we have done, that we will going to try to change it to the contractions. So the diaphragm which got flattened will now going to become raised, and the cavity which was created because of the space inside the lung or the chest cavity, that will going to reduce. As a result of that, whichever amount of air is there inside the body, it will going to be expelled out. So that is how the whole concept comes in, that which are the organs involved, how the different organs perform their functions altogether. The next part that we have is how faster breathing energizes a person. So it is a very fast process, means it is a very efficient process, and we simply require 15 to 18 breaths a minute. That is enough for an individual to fulfill its requirement on a normal, or you can say on a regular basis. But if in case it happens that the body is performing some heavy exercise, then the breathing rate or the breaths per minute count can increase up to 25 times a minute. That will going to simply be required when the different cells inside the body are going to require a huge amount of oxygen to fulfill the requirement. So that is how exactly the efficiency of body is, that whenever it requires normal breathing, it will going to perform that, and whenever it requires an extensive breathing, it will perform that too. Now, one such phenomena related with the process of breathing is the process of sneezing. Now, this is actually a reflex action that occurs inside our body, which will going to be caused because of an irritation in the nose. So it can be because of any external material which is entering our body, or to be more specific, the nasal cavity, like dust particle, pollen grains, or maybe sometimes some particular smells as well. They can also initiate this particular sudden and reflex action in the body, because what happens is the body is unable to differentiate that whether it is a dust particle or a air particle in the form of smell. But yes, all together these things are actually a kind of foreign particles for the body. So what happens is they get trapped inside the nasal cavity, and the nasal cavity will going to have the irritation because the lining start getting irritation out of it. So this irritation results in the sneezing process where the body tends to remove all the impurities that got stuck in the small hair of the nasal cavity or the nostrils, which ultimately helps in cleaning out and purifying out the air that is entering the body. So that is all about the concept of breathing, and now you can relate that how the air that we are taking in inside the body in the process of breathing, how it is ultimately helping the process of respiration. So this is all about this session. Rest we will going to continue in our next session. So till then, take care and keep learning.